I don't believe in working on weaknesses. I think it's incredibly stupid, and I think it's a complete waste of time. No trial lasts forever. Anything and everything that happens to you in life before 40 is just practice. Like the game starts at 40, because with age comes wisdom, and I think wisdom is the basis for all good decisions. Whereas youth and indiscretion is the basis for all poor decisions. In life and in sports and politics, there's a winner and there's a loser.
Right.
And you either won or you lost. And if they cheated and beat you, guess what? They still beat you.
Welcome to the He's Wrong, She's Right podcast. I'm Andrew. This is Nona. Today we're joined with Baker Leavitt of Black Rifle fame, Kill Cliff fame. Looks like you've got about a million different things going on, Baker. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, I try to stay busy. Everything I do kind of works in concert, and like everything I do is a force multiplier for everything else that I do.
That makes sense.
That's the way I view things. Like everything exists on the same aisle of the grocery store, so to speak. So like,
I wish it were that easy for everybody in life.
Yeah, I've just been doing so. Like my father passed away when I was like 5 years old. My brother was 8 weeks old. My mother was in graduate school, and I just wanted to raise myself. And my mother said she didn't have the strength to fight me, so she just let me do it. And like my entire life, I'm not a rebellious person, but just my entire life, I've always kind of done things my way, the way that I thought was the best way to do it, and it's always kind of worked out really well for me.
One of the very few people that can say that.
Like in sports, but you know, there's a catch to that. So like, I'm really, really good at a bunch of different things. I'm not really great at any one thing. Like I'm kind of a generalist, you know, good at everything, great at nothing. And I will say this: doing things my way got me far, but like I've never like truly been like exceptional really at anything. I mean, I do have some superpowers, but like those are personality driven. But like sports, for example, growing up, I was always the fastest guy on the field, like undisputable. No one would argue with that. And I just kind of did things my way, and it got me. I was good enough to play in college football.
Right.
But I wasn't good enough in college to play because I did things my way growing up, and I never really needed to learn the X's and O's of the game.
Gotcha.
And so like on the third day of summer camp, my freshman year of college, I was like, okay, not good enough. Good enough to be on the team, but not good enough to play. So there are some limitations to doing things my way, but like I'm totally comfortable with every decision that I've ever made, and I'm happy in life. Like I'm as happy as, but I'm living my life the way I want to.
I don't think there's any negatives to being a jack of all trade, but a master of none. It sounds like the headstrong in you is what's the driving force.
I am kind of bullheaded. Yeah, but
I know nothing about that.
But I'm also very self-aware. Like I will say this, like my self-awareness, like knowing my strengths and weaknesses is one of my strengths. Like I know what I'm bad at, and I'll be the first to tell you, like if Black Rifle, they're like, hey, Baker, you know, you're the director of strategic relations. We want to make you the CFO or this, you know, head of, CFO or head of finance or head of operations. Right. Black Rifle would be bankrupt and not even, they would fail. So like, I know what I'm good at.
Right.
And I don't believe in working on weaknesses. I think it's incredibly stupid, and I think it's a complete waste of time.
No, absolutely.
I mean, now, you know, there's something to be said about like if you have some habits that annoy people or make you hard to deal with or it makes it challenging for others. Yeah, work on that stuff, you know. But that's more of like a character thing. But as far as like, you know, just I know what I'm good at, I know what I'm bad at.
So would you say that learning potentially new skills or taking like you know, everybody gets pitched those ads for like Skillshare and a couple of the other ones where it's like learn how to code or learn how to do this, learn how to become an engineer online, you know, in your free time. Are you saying like you wouldn't even do that because you know what you're good at and you just want to build off of that?
100,000%. So there's a lot of people in life you'll hear say that saying, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. That is bullshit. That is a lie. You know who says that? People that are already rich.
Yeah.
I was going to say your employers because they want you to work harder.
Yeah, you're never going to find like a poor person and be like, yeah, man, you just got to find what you love. And no. You figure out in life what you're good at. And then you get someone to pay you to do that.
Yep.
That's the secret. Showing up on time, having the right equipment with you, having a positive attitude, that is 80% of life. If you do that, if you do those three things, and if you're young, there's a fourth, and that's can I cuss on here?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah. Shut the up. That's number 4. If you're young, show up on time, have the right equipment with you, have a positive attitude, shut the up. That's if you're young. If you're not young, just those 3 things. You're 80% there, and that's just kind of what I've done. It's like, oh, I'm good at this. And then it plays into ego. Like if you were to take people into a gym, people that worked out and said, hey man, what do you want to do today? Everyone's going to default to the things that they're good at,
right.
Then that's, ego. I don't really have a lot of ego. I think ego is a killer in life, and I think it will haunt you and can ruin your life. It can ruin relationships and all that stuff. Like I go out of my way to make sure I don't have ego and I don't have any pride. I think pride is what people that don't have anything default to. Well, I don't have any money. I don't have an education. I don't have anything going for me. I don't have any wisdom. I don't have any skills, but I got pride. So like ego and pride are just, get rid of those things.
So just be bullheaded. Don't have pride. Don't have ego. Just be bullheaded.
Yeah. There's something to be said about people that just refuse to quit.
Yeah.
Like I've always said, life is kind of like a treadmill. It's not over till you get off. So as long as you're just willing, like you can always take another step. Like I can do one more rep. I can send one more email. If you're in sales, you can send one more text message. You can make another cold call. You can always do one.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Like your body's going to die and quit long before your brain does. You know what I mean? Or whatever. You know what I mean? No, but like I've had some really shitty things happen to me in life, and they've all been my fault. Well, my father passing away, that had nothing to do with that. I was 5.
Right.
But that was terrible. But that's also one of the greatest things that's ever happened to me. And if I could go back in time, I wouldn't change a thing. I would give anything to be able to to sit down at 49 and have a conversation with my father.
Right.
Like if I had one wish, it would be that one wish, but I wouldn't have changed the way my life evolved,
right.
And I think with my father passing away, it made me who I am today. Like I lost between 2000 and 2, I was in real estate from 2002 to 2010, 11, and I ended up losing about $15 million. But from 2008 to 2010 when the market crashed, I lost everything I had. I was married. I had like 100 and something properties.
Wow.
I was like the king of Savannah, Georgia, Broughton Street, downtown real estate. I mean, that's what I did. And I was really, really good at it because I really just enjoyed talking to people. It's a lot of fun, and that was terrible. Like 32 years old and going from the top of the mountain to like underneath the mountain overnight.
Did you lose your marriage at that point as well?
Yes, and thank God. Absolutely. Yeah, that was the win. But
okay.
New marriage, should never have gotten married, and we got married during all this stuff happening in the real estate market, and
she married you when you were at your high, left you at your low, or was it the reverse?
No, so Victoria was 4 years younger than me. And I can say this, like Victoria Turner and Reagan Howard were probably 2 of the most attractive females ever to come out of Savannah, Georgia. And I remember my senior year, the city track meet, the finals of the 4x100 relay. They were literally starting the race. And Victoria and Reagan were walking across the middle of the infield, and the announcers paused to look at them. And it was funny. I ended up getting the baton, 15 yards behind Mashuni Walker, which is Herschel Walker's nephew.
Oh, wow.
And I beat him by 5 yards.
Wow, that's
One
awesome.
of my life athletic highlights. Got the baton last and just walked him down and beat him by 5, and it was an amazing experience. But anyway, so I'd known Victoria my entire life, and we started dating in like 2006. Dated for a year, got engaged, and then got married. And right when we got married, everything started falling apart. So it was just you. I mean, you want to talk about a recipe for disaster for a new marriage? My goodness, that was it. And so, like, she sold one of my houses in Savannah a few years ago. I text her from time to time, or she'll text me from time to time. Like, I don't have any ill will.
Okay.
We never had any like ill will. It wasn't one of those like, it happened like that. Like, this isn't working. You drink too much, and I don't like that. And like it was just, I mean, what a horrible experience. But like going through that was traumatic. And one thing, losing my father at an early age that was taught me was like, if you want to fight me, if you want to get me to the point where I will start throwing hands at you and there will be a physical confrontation, feel sorry for me about something, because like that will send me over the edge. Like, the thought of feeling sorry for myself or someone feeling sorry for me is unacceptable. And like growing up, in the 80s, like the nuclear family was alive and well back then, right? Yep. Like, 2-parent households and all that stuff.
Right.
And, your father would come to school, father comes to school, or father-son camping trips and things like that. And I didn't have a father. And so it always like was like a chip on my shoulder, like, oh, Baker does, like the thought of someone thinking, oh, he's missing out on life because he doesn't have a dad. That just never sat well with me. So lost everything in real estate, felt sorry for myself for about 48 hours. And just became enraged and decided that, like, I'm going to join the military, because my brother had just come back. So my brother was a Force Recon Marine, and he had just started medical school. He was like, you should go Rep 63 into SF. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to do that, because I was disgusted by money.
Yeah.
So you joined at 32?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that considered old for joining?
No.
I didn't even know that.
No, I think
the upper limit was like 40 or 42 or something like that, I believe.
Dan Horgan went through TAC Peace School at 38, 39.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
So I was going to do that. I'm 50 miles from Camp Blading. They're like, you have an inguinal hernia and a bad shoulder, and you're not going to pass MEPS. And I was like, well, I got to do something. So I started going through the Defense Foreign Service Agent Program in the Department of State. And I was like, if I have language and medical, I'll be way ahead of the curve. So I went to NYU to get a master's degree in Arabic, and I took emergency medicine at Columbia at night.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I remember getting there. I remember getting to New York, and like, I was just thinking, I was like, I remember my car got towed the first night and I had to walk 80 miles.
That sucks.
That was my punishment. I was like, I'm going to walk to the impound lot, which is on one of the piers down at like, 82nd or something. And I remember I got 2 blocks into the walk, and I was like, I'm going to be all right. I'm going to be fine. Because I remember just looking around, and I was like, if my private parts were hanging out of my pants, no one here would care, because everyone's got their own problems.
Yeah.
And my problems are nothing compared to these other people's problems.
Right.
Like I have a saying, like if we were all sat in a circle and everyone slid their problems into the middle of the circle, we'd pull ours back first before we grabbed anybody else. It's like, so, and I ended up starting a CrossFit apparel company. Moved there in August of 2010, New York City. Started a CrossFit apparel company in December of 2010, which we sold in the spring of like 2018 or 19 or something.
Yeah, I think your LinkedIn said 2019.
Yeah, Tupu. And then a few months after that, we started a drink company called Kill Club. And that's when I was like, okay, my future is like entrepreneurial spirit, business, things like that. And so, those things were taken off and everything was great. And I was in a long-term relationship in Washington, D.C. And then I got like this 5-year audit from the IRS because they said I owed like $668,000 in back taxes. And I was like, an IRS agent called me. And I was like, hey, man, if you can tell me where that money is, we'll split it. You know, I was joking. He didn't think it was funny. So it cost me, I was living in Washington State at the time. It cost me $4,400 to get all my documents sent to my accountant in Washington State. My accounting bill was $34,000.
Jeez.
It took 10 months. And he called me. He goes, all right, we're done. You got to bring your checkbook. And I was like, what do you mean bring my checkbook? Just, you got to, like, I don't know.
I need a number, man. I can't just write a blank check.
He goes, just bring your checkbook. You'll be fine. So I went up there and ended up paying $574.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that was another thing that kind of I went through that was like pretty traumatic, but I came out the other side and I was like, no trial lasts forever. And it's like the guy in that movie 13 Peaks. He's like, whatever you think there's only like a 34% chance you're actually, you're in much better shape than you think. And then, fast forward, Kelsey and I dated for like 7-8 years. And that relationship ended in 2017, 2018, something like that. And like, that was pretty traumatic because like you think your life's on the right track and you're heading in the right direction and everything's going great. And I got these 2 companies that are kicking ass. And I'm doing a bunch of consulting work and life's good. And then that relationship just ended. So like the thought of like starting over at like 40, 42 sucked.
Right.
It's like, what the hell, man? Like, where am I supposed to go? Like,
and where were you living at the time?
Seattle, north of Seattle. So Mill Creek, so Seattle, Washington, basically.
Okay.
And that was the most psychological, like, mind fuck ever because, like I thought this girl at the time was like, I'd convinced myself that she was like the sun and the moon and the stars and everything revolved around her. And we just kind of went our separate ways. And like, I'm driving to Texas because I was like, well, I'm going to go to San Antonio. That's where Black Rifles HQ is. I'm going to go there. And so I get there and like, everyone's like, are you all right? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm good. I think I'm good. Like, but I kept waiting. Like, when is the other shoe going to drop? Like, when am I going to get depressed and upset and all that stuff? And that just never happened. So, no matter how bad you think something is, it's never really that bad.
Right.
Like, we have one of the beautiful things about living in America and being humans is you can wake up every day and make a conscious decision to have a good day or a bad day. And like, you're in charge. We are in charge of our lives. Like, every decision we make is going to have consequences. It's going to be second, third, fourth order effects. And, and I look back on all the stuff that happened and I look where I am now. And like, I could not script a better life. Like my wife is, I am madly in love with my wife. I think she's the most wonderful person I've ever met. And then she's just like, I couldn't, like, I went pinch myself. Like, is this real?
And when and where did you meet her?
I met Melissa, spoke to her for the first time, May the 27th, 2011.
Oh, wow.
Before I started dating the girl that I live with in Washington State. We met I saw her for the first time in January of 2011, but I didn't speak to her. I saw her at a CrossFit at the Woodstock Garage Games in Woodstock, Georgia. It was a CrossFit event. And I just remember thinking, mother of God, who is that? I can tell you what she was wearing. She was wearing black Lulu bottoms and a red Lulu top. And it was the final event. She was sitting on the side of a hill, and I was like, holy shit, she's hot. And then she was working the Sick Fit booth directly beside the Tupood booth at the Southeast Regional in Jacksonville, 2011. And I just remember she didn't have on a wedding ring. And she had on Vans, jorts, and a T-shirt. I was like, God, she's so hot. And then she got in a long-term relationship. I was in a long-term relationship. And I remember I was in San Antonio, but she carried Killcliff in her CrossFit gym. She's owned East Ormond Beach CrossFit for 15 years. And she bought Tupood belts. We've always been friendly, on Instagram and stuff and chatted and whatnot. But I just remember scrolling through Instagram one night and was like, where's that dude? And I sent her a DM. I was like, hey, where's that guy?
You slid into her DMs when you noticed that she was posting selfies without her dude?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we had talked. Like, it wasn't like
Right. No. I know. She was always on the back burner, always in the back of your mind.
And then I was like, hey, she's like, where's that girl? And I was like, we broke up. She's like, yeah, we broke up. And I was like, you want to go to dinner? And she's like, sure. The next time you're in Florida, I'd love to go have dinner with you. And I was like, all right, I'm going hunting in Australia in 10 days. When I come back, I'm going to come see you. She's like, all right. And like, so we literally talked 3 times a day and then the whole time I was in Australia, which was 2 weeks, I was in Arnhem Land, which is an Aboriginal village. When I say middle of nowhere, if you've never been to Australia, like the middle of nowhere is in Australia. Like that's where it is. And I had the full cell service in this village that was 6.5 hours away from the nearest civilization. And I got back. I went to sleep at like 9 o'clock, woke up at 6:30, and I was like, oh my God, I beat jet lag. Got in my truck and drove to Ormond Beach, Florida, and we've been together ever since.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So
that's the definition of if he wanted to, he would.
Every time I see you post a picture of her sleeping in bed,
every night,
all I can think is the one time I ever did that to her, she held a grudge for the longest time. And yeah, almost every night I see it in a story. It's like her, like, I think last night or the night before, there was like a book next to her in the bed or something like that. And
every night she falls asleep reading, and sometimes she'll read 10 pages and sometimes she reads 2, because she gets up early and coaches their 5:30 a.m. class, and I go to bed later than her. So yeah, every night I take pictures of her sleep. She thinks it's funny.
Cute.
She would never tolerate me doing it.
Yeah. Well, most women would not appreciate that, but I just told her, I was like, I'm not going to stop doing this. This is the new reality for you, Melissa. Like, this is it. Like, I'm not changing this.
That's awesome.
So, but yeah, like all the stuff that's happened to me in life has led me to where I am now. And I think that anything and everything that happens to you in life before 40 is just practice. Like, the game starts at 40, like, because with age comes wisdom. And I think wisdom is the basis for all good decisions. Whereas youth and indiscretion is the basis for all poor decisions. And I've made a ton of poor decisions in life, but once you hit 40 as a man, you realize that you're not immortal and you're not going to live forever. Recovery takes longer, aches and pains last longer, you're sore longer, you fall out of shape, you gain weight faster, you get back into shape, it takes longer, just everything kind of changes. And I think for men, a lot of guys, at least for me, that at the age of 40, I realized that, I'm not 18 anymore. Shit. Took me 22 years to figure that out. But yeah, everything's good, man. I don't have any complaints.
According to Google, men don't grow up until the age of 43.
I agree with that. I absolutely agree with that. I'm 49 now, and I'm like, that is one of the things about getting older that I look forward to, is just wisdom, because in the different work that I do, experience comes with age as well, And so when people ask, it's like, well, what about doing X, Y, and Z? Well, we did X at this company, we tried Y at this company, and we did Z at these 2 different companies, and none of them worked. And we should probably try to do this, because you get a better understanding of how people think.
Yep.
At least in the world that I live in, which is incredibly valuable. Like, you can't put a price. Like, all the stuff I do in DC, like my experience in the consumer packaged goods world, like corporate America, like, you can't put a price tag on it, because most of the people in DC only understand what happens in their world. They don't have a point of reference outside of DC politics. And like, when you look at, like, if I'm selling you a bag of coffee, a political campaign is the exact same thing as a consumer packaged goods company. In consumer packaged goods, I have to convince you to give me money in exchange for a product.
Right.
Okay. In the political world, I have to convince you to give up an asset, which is incredibly valuable, which is time, to vote. The difference between a consumer selling a product is that your life doesn't necessarily change without the product.
Right.
But in the political world, your life can change based on policies. If your candidate that you align with wins or loses, that can have a massive impact on your life. So the political stuff has just been super fun. I have enjoyed it immensely, and being able to take experiences over the past 15 years in business and apply them to political campaigns has just been the greatest joy of my business career. It is, aside from Black Rifle going public, which I don't think I'll ever be able to duplicate, that sensation, which is just completely wild. But the political stuff has had a huge impact on the current race. And tomorrow we'll see how much of an impact it had. So it's been a lot of fun.
It's really crazy to hear so many people talk about how much they love being in politics. For me, by trade, I'm a web developer, marketer, and then of course running the show now. And I absolutely hate ads, but I know they're necessary. The world that we live in, you can't have a business without having it. Same thing with politics. Basically, we just live in a world that is all ads all the time in some way, shape, or form, whether that's convincing somebody to do something, to buy something, to be something, whatever, it doesn't matter. And it drives me crazy. Like I am my own worst enemy, but I think that helps me understand what I need to do to be successful. So hearing you guys the last couple of weeks talk about how much you love, being in the political landscape, I'm like, am I actually missing out on something?
It is the most fun that I've ever had in my professional career, because you walk into a room in Washington, D.C. with a bunch of people, and everyone knows who I am in that room and what I've done. And my resume to those people is tremendous. It's incredibly valuable. And so they listen. And it's also like Washington, D.C. is Hollywood for ugly people. Okay. Like if you were to take everyone out of Hollywood, take everyone out of D.C., say, you can't work in this field or this field, you have to go find another job. Those people would all be living under an overpass. They don't have any marketable skills outside of Hollywood or Washington, D.C. And so bringing in a fresh perspective, and also those are the dumbest people in America, man. I have sat in meetings in rooms with people, and you look at these people and you just thought, how did you get into a position of authority or power over anyone? Because you are not smart. You are genetically deficient in so many areas. It's mind-boggling to me. And so the people in DC, they're there for one of two things. You have people in DC that are there for money, and you have people that are there for power. And every once in a while, you'll come across someone that's there for both power and money. And so there are people, I'm a Republican, I work on Republican campaigns, that's what I do. And there are people there in that world that if Trump loses tomorrow, will make more money.
I can see that.
And it's crazy. So take, for example, Ron DeSantis. I live in Florida, he's my governor. I think he's the best governor in the United States of America. I think his storm prevention plans, with those last two hurricanes, were unrivaled in the history of natural disasters. This guy is a rock star. His resume is off the charts. If you look at him on paper, it's remarkable. Why did he run in the primary against Trump? Okay, he's not going to beat Trump. Trump was the 45th president of the United States, has a massive movement behind him, ran for president in 2020, and some people say he won. Some people say there was shenanigans. I think there was shenanigans. Do I think there was outright cheating? No. Do I think the Democrats found loopholes in gray area in the election process and took advantage of it? Absolutely. So you'll never hear me say, oh, he was robbed or they cheated, because in life and in sports and politics, there's a winner and there's a loser.
Right. And
you either won or you lost. And if they cheated and beat you, guess what? They still beat you. So that's kind of the way I look at it. And so he had something to prove, had a massive, insane amounts of money and funding behind him, and the whole MAGA movement behind him. He was the guy. Okay. So why would Ron DeSantis run against him and damage his personal political brand and reputation? Because if he didn't run, his campaign managers wouldn't have made any money. So those campaign managers only make money when their candidate runs. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So there you have people giving someone bad advice to put money in their pockets. And that happens every day in politics. So how did I get on that topic? Oh yeah. So talking about people. So like, that's kind of some of the crazy stuff you see in DC. It's like, wait a minute, like, why are you're going to, because Donald Trump, no slight goes unpunished. Like you don't like attack him or slight him. And he's like, oh, water under the bridge. No, he's going to get back at you. And whether you think that's a good thing or a bad thing, that's what it is. And so like, that's an example of just really poor political advice. Because the people in DC, like the staffers and the consultants and all those people, they're just there for money, man.
Right.
And they don't give a damn about anybody. They don't care about me. They don't care about you. They don't care about anyone either of you've spoken to today. They don't care about anything but themselves, money, and power.
Yep.
So when you can go in and like, I remember our first meetings, like, I work with some of the biggest think tanks in DC, like literally the biggest think tanks in DC. And I just remember asking, like, hey, so like, what are you guys like excited about this election cycle? This is in January. It's like, what are you like? Surely you've got like a thing that you're going to do,
right?
Like some plan. And they just looked at me like I was crazy. And I was like, so
there's no plan. Just spend money, try to make money.
Yeah. So it's for them. Well, they're like, and I was like, well, you're going to spend more money. And then previous elections, like, yeah, we'll do that. And I was like, but you're not going to do anything. Newark's like, well, what? What do you mean? Like, they just run TV ads, man. But I will say this: what Trump did in this cycle, and we did have something to do with this, is the podcast stuff. Like, we got with the Trump campaign, we pushed and pressed and pressed and pressed on podcasts. Like, you got to do them, you got to do them. And so, if you look at, I think legacy media is dying.
Yep.
I think they're dead. I think the 60 Minutes interview with Kamala, where they edited it, I think that was their death knell. And I think you have, the mainstream media is actively working against Donald Trump. Like that is, if you look at the reporting, 85% of all stuff on Trump's negative, 86 or 87% of all stuff on Kamala is positive. So when you look at that behavior and then you look at the podcast, it's long form. Like Trump's Joe Rogan just on YouTube was 41 million views.
Yeah.
Dude, that's crazy. That's insane.
Yep.
And that doesn't even take into account the number of Spotify listens, Look at Vance on Rogan. Look at Trump on Theo Vaughn, 14 million. Look at Trump on Sean Ryan. And I think, it goes back to, when you think you're screwed, you're not really that screwed. But like you look at like these negative things, which I view as negative, which is mainstream media, on our airwaves that we own.
Yep.
That's where they exist. And, their broadcast licenses will probably come up for review if Trump wins because they're not doing their job. They don't have to pay for that stuff, but they're supposed to report fairly and they don't do that. So what it's done is it's created opportunities for citizen journalists such as yourself to get people on your podcast and just talk about whatever. And I think the main thing, in consumer packaged goods and companies is if you can create culture and community, those are the two things that are very powerful. If you can create culture and community, you can really accomplish anything. And I think that one of the key ways to creating culture and community is for customers or followers or voters or whatever to find common ground with the individual. Look at Black Rifle Coffee. Why is Black Rifle Coffee a billion-dollar company? It's not because Evan didn't grow up rich. Evan grew up lower middle class. Matt Best, same thing. JT, same thing. They didn't have any rich relatives. They never won the lottery. Like they literally started the Black Rifle Coffee with an idea and a concept, and they had really good video and chops and stuff, and they knew how to make videos and stuff, and they just made people laugh.
Yep.
And every single person that has ever bought the majority of people that have ever purchased Black Rifle Coffee products can tell you more about Evan and Matt Best than they can any other company that they buy from. I guarantee that.
That's fair. I can
Apple,
believe that.
iPhone, Android, whatever car you drive, whatever.
Yep.
I guarantee you that there's more known in the public domain about Evan Hafer and Matt Best than any other CEO founder out there.
Yeah, they always felt, even before I'd ever met them, they always felt accessible. Everybody, within Facebook groups and things like that, people engaging with each other, even if it was YouTube comments, but specifically like the Drinking Bros Facebook group, Spearhead, a couple of the others, you always have them in there interacting with you. They're not somebody that just doesn't care about who you are at all and is just there to make money. Like, they sincerely enjoy that community and they engage back with the community. So yeah,
you get better service from an owner than you do a manager. And it's like, if you've ever, people that listening that rent or have ever rented or whatever, like, do you get better service from talking directly to your landlord or talking to a management company? You're going to get better service when you talk to a landlord. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So that was the beauty of Black Rifle. And that's the same thing with, these podcasts and stuff. It's like the Theo Vaughn podcast. I didn't know that Trump's older brother had addiction issues. We didn't know that. Now there are people that will vote for Trump tomorrow because they or a family member or someone has had something to do with an addiction problem, because they found common ground with, oh shit, his brother is an alcoholic. My brother's an alcoholic, like that. And that's the beauty of it. Like, you find their interest. Or, Andrew Bailey, who's Attorney General in Missouri. We've gotten him on a ton of podcasts, and like, oh, he fosters kids. I foster kids, or I'm interested in fostering kids, or, he was a tanker in the military. Oh, I was a tanker. It's like, you find out things about people that you will never, ever get on a 3-minute soundbite on Fox News.
Right.
So I think the future is citizen journalism and just podcasts and stuff. And I think it's just awesome. And that's a byproduct of just people losing what their mission truly was. Like journalists, like when I was growing up, I remember, was it Tom Brokaw or someone said something that was like mildly untrue? Guy lost his job.
Yep.
I can't think of a single person talking head on mainstream media that's ever told the truth in the past 8 years. You know what I mean? Like, it's insane.
Do you feel like it's the younger generation that's pushing for the politicians to be more humanized rather than the older generation? That is a fantastic question, and I'm going to give you a very long, roundabout answer. So the Senate, when you look at the Senate and then you look at Congress, so there's like 435 members of Congress, and that is the number of congressional seats a state gets is based on the census, okay? And then every single state has 2 senators, and that's our electoral college, and that is by design. So, Los Angeles and New York City aren't in charge of everything, So when you look at the Senate is made up of very, very wealthy, powerful people. Most senators are older and have had very, very successful careers in all manner of stuff. I don't know what the average net worth of a U.S. senator is, but it's substantial. And I will tell you this, it costs about, like, you're talking now after this race, $10 to $25 million to win a Senate election.
Jeez.
But hold on, that's actually really, really low. No, it is way more than that now. The Senate race in Montana, Tim Sheehy and John Tester will be the most per capita, based on the population of Montana, the most expensive race in the history of United States politics. There would be $1 billion dropped in that state race.
Wow.
But yeah, it costs a tremendous amount of money to get a Senate seat. Okay, and
but then they make it all back from lobbyists.
What's that?
They make it all back from lobbyists.
Oh yeah, for sure. But Congress is different because they're much younger. Like, you have like AOC and you have some other people that have won congressional seats. And that doesn't cost anywhere near as much money. And there's a lot more of those seats available. So I think, is it Gen Z is the super young one?
Is that right?
I think it's Gen Z is the
Well,
youngest.
what would you define as super young? Like, this is their first voting?
18 to 22.
Okay, then yes, that's Gen Z.
Yeah, so I think Gen Z is demanding a lot of change in this election, believe it or not. And I do think that Gen Z, to answer your question, I think Gen Z has the younger population has a much greater connection or attraction to congressmen. And I think your older generation has a much greater connection with the Senate.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, you're aligning with people that are roughly within your age group. And that would make perfect sense to me.
Yeah. So like, and then every 2 years,
Congress has to run for re-election. The Senate is staggered, and those are 6-year appointments or 6-year terms. So I think you have a lot of change and a lot of stuff being driven by college-educated white females. That's a massive, massive component. They vote like crazy. And then I think you also have, a big block of young voters that are coming out that are kind of aware as to what's going on with the country and the direction it's heading. And I think they feel stress a lot more. They're less confrontational. Like if you look at like when I was growing up, like the Rocky movies, like Stallone would get his ass beat for an hour and a half. And then in the last 5 minutes of the damn movie, he'd come back and win.
Yep. And
like you were literally it was an emotional roller coaster, the whole movie until the end, and then he won. You don't see stuff like that anymore. Like I think that, the phone generation is completely different than my generation. Less patience, less tolerance, less understanding. They want instantaneous acceptance of their ideas. And that's one of the problems is that like you have to, just because you have your arms completely wrapped around something, and this is a lesson in business for people, just because you have run an idea through your head 1,500 times and you have looked at it from every angle and there's no question you can't answer about your concept or your idea or your project. You have to understand that other people have no clue what you're talking about most of the time, and you have to give them time to wrap their arms around it and understand what you're talking about.
Yep.
So like you look at like gay marriage and things like that. Go back when that was being pushed around, 10, 20 years ago. Like there are people in major cities like New York and, LA and stuff where gay men, whatever, gay women was no big deal. It's very normal. But then you go look at someone like in, say, Broken Bow, Nebraska, that's never seen two gay men together. They don't know anything about it. So you have to give people time to understand and process things. And I think that's one of the challenges that our country faces is there's certain generations, the phone generation, like they don't give people time to process their ideas. They want instantaneous acceptance, like immediately. And if you don't agree with me, you're a bad person.
But that's the self-aware in you that you mentioned that you both have had, but also have grown into. So at what age would you consider yourself to be fully self-aware?
From a self-awareness from like a physical standpoint, I've had that my whole life.
No, an emotional standpoint. We're talking about emotions here.
Emotional. And so like I break it up into emotional and business, and then personality. So personality probably took me the longest to understand, because my whole thing was like, if you're not running as fast as I am and working as much as I am, you're dead to me. Why are you on the team if you're not putting in the same effort that I am?
Cold-hearted.
That was one. That was work. That was business, which I'm not that way anymore. Emotional, I would say emotional self-awareness. That's probably been in the last 5 years.
43 according to Google.
Yeah. And then I've always been physical self-awareness. I've had physical self-awareness my whole life, but like emotional, business, and then like my personality. I think that just kind of slowed down with age, like there were times in my life when I was a lot to deal with, but it goes back to like being right. And just because you're right doesn't give you a right to be an, and that took me.
Amen.
That took me 2000 and probably 2019 is when I kind of cracked that code. But there's a lot of people that they will bend hell and high water to be right and to prove to everyone that they're right about something. But, it's like dancing on someone's grave or, kicking a horse when he's down. It's like, people don't like being humiliated. They don't like being embarrassed. And you just have to everyone just needs to chill the f out. That's what I'd say.
Well, people also dig in, even when they realize, oh, I really am wrong. Then they want to start actually nitpicking the details and like the words that you used, and you didn't spell that right, so you're just dumb anyways. Like they can't just accept the fact that their idea was terrible and that they were shown the facts or shown the right way.
Well, that's my wife.
Melissa, and I'll tell her this all the time. Melissa will move goalposts like onto another sports field, like real fast. And I always say, she's just got home from Orlando. I can hear the garage door window. And I tell her all the time, I'm like, hey, sweetheart, you keep moving those goalposts, eventually you might score, which makes her even madder. And I laugh, and that makes her even more mad. But, that's just how it is sometimes.
Sounds like this household. No. I'm not saying me or you specifically. I'm just saying that we get it.
I think you got to pick your battles in life. I think that's super important. So I think it's equally as important, like knowing when to push and when to back off with people, whether it be personal, business, or just a random stranger, whatever. Like and I can get wrapped around the axle about things. Like I can obsess about certain stuff to the point where it will drive me crazy. So yeah, still evolving, still figuring stuff out, still growing. But that's the beautiful part about getting older. Is, like it's cool as shit, man. Like just having a lifetime of experience to look back on and base decisions on, where a lot of people, they don't have that. But it comes, just you got to give it time.
Going back to
every once in a while you'll cross paths with someone that's like an old soul and like they're just slow and thoughtful and all that stuff. I've never been that person. I needed time to kind of get those skills dialed in.
That's okay.
Yeah, going back to the conversation about wisdom coming with age and experience and everything like that, I've noticed my dad ran a major commercial and industrial construction company in northern Indiana. The majority of my life closed right around the recession as well. Just because, in addition to people not buying houses, they're also not building new buildings and factories and schools and things. So
get loans.
Yeah. So my dad was always a big mentor of mine for business and obviously just being a father, decision making and things like that. And I've noticed over probably the last 5 years or so, maybe a little bit longer, that there's been a little bit of a shift, but it's not in everything. There's still things that I ask my dad, for advice, or if he's got somebody I can talk to or consult with or whatever. But specifically within like the technology sector, right? Things that, hey, Andrew, I've got this issue or whatever, I need a new security camera for my house. What do you recommend now? Like starting to go down that path where now my dad's looking to me for things because my generation just knows more about it, and it's easier for me to provide him the information. He's going to get a more intimate, I guess, response rather than, going to like Best Buy and saying, hey, I have this. And they're just like, well, I want to make my commission, so why don't you buy that one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people.
Was there a question with that?
No.
You just dangled the fact that you still have your father and he doesn't.
No, I did not.
It was relating the fact that
I was hoping you were going to turn it around to, do you have somebody that is a mentor in your life, or are you currently mentoring somebody? My goodness.
No. The way I interpreted that was like, so it's interesting. Like people love, especially older people, men specifically, love being asked advice on how to do things and how to fix things. Then there's also another way to look at it, is like I tell people that I hire, like there's nothing you're going to do that's going to impress me. Don't ever try to impress me, because you're going to do that.
God.
No, let me finish. Don't ever try to impress me. Like just be genuine and authentic in your questions and all that stuff. What really impresses me is when you give someone a task and they do everything in their power to accomplish it. Okay. And then they hit something, they hit a place or there's a fail point there along the way. And they're like, hey, I'm doing this. I did this and this, and I'm kind of having some trouble with this right here. Can you tell me how to solve that? Absolutely. Here's how you fix it. That impresses me. What doesn't impress me is when you give them a task and then they come back to you in 5 minutes having not tried to solve it. That drives me insane.
Do you have children?
No.
Oh, I was about to say, welcome to parenthood.
So that's one of the things I tell people, like, hey, like, just don't try to impress me, because when people try to impress people, they end up doing stupid things.
Yeah.
And then they focus on what's a good question? That I can't stand that. It's like,
So are you more focused? Do you really care about the answer, or are you just trying to sound intelligent by asking what you deem as a good question? So like being genuine is another thing I would add to my 3 to 4 points. You know, showing up on time, right equipment, positive attitude, shutting the f- up if you're young, and then being genuine. So I did not interpret his question anything having to do with his father. I didn't view it that way. What I viewed it as was he had a person that he goes to for certain information, and then as society has evolved and technology has evolved, that person can't help him with the technology stuff, but he can still help him with the other stuff. That was my interpretation.
Okay.
Yeah, no, listen, I got real thick skin. Like, it's virtually impossible to hurt my feelings. Like, it's not possible at all.
No, I didn't think he was trying to intentionally hurt your feelings. I was hoping that he was going to turn it into a question, or I don't know, just the way that you. Anyways,
I was kind of bringing it back to a couple of things, like who you would bounce your ideas off of when you were a kid, and who, I guess in this case, since you were talking about not wanting people to try to impress you, was that a lesson that you learned by trying to impress somebody?
No. So I've never tried to impress people. Like, so growing up, as far as like having someone like I could like reach out to for questions, I don't really think there was a person. I kind of did everything on my own. Like, I just figured it out. Like in sports and stuff, like, I taught myself how to hurdle, and I ended up setting a state record my junior year in the hurdles in Georgia. Like, I literally taught myself how to hurdle. I taught myself how to do pole vault. But I do have people that I will reach out to for to check ideas. Evan Hafer's one of them. He's the founder of Black Rifle. Todd Ehrlich, the founder of Killcliff. I'll ask him certain questions. I've got people that I reach out to for like finance stuff, like investment stuff. But like, I do a lot of stuff by my gut. Like, I've relied on my gut, my intuition my whole life, and it's never really failed me. But I do value other people's opinions tremendously, and like anything involving like exercise or exercise physiology. Melissa, you said I'm emotionally unavailable. Were you joking, or you said that the other day? Huh? Like all the time, or a little bit of the time?
98% of the time.
What'd you say? Say it again, Melissa. I'm missing something spiritually. Whatever. Typical male answer response by me. But no, yeah, she would say that I'm emotionally reserved. Like, no, but like, I can compartmentalize things. Like, I've had to in life, and like, maybe one day they'll come to the surface and I'll be a wreck, and maybe they won't. I don't think they will. I just, I can wall things off real fast, pretty easily. Self-preservation mechanism. It's like a cyst, like if you have something in your body will calcify it.
Yep.
To protect the body. So yeah, I do that pretty well, pretty easily.
So I used to have, when I was a medic, people were like, oh, you should have some emotion and do this. And I'm like, why? Well, who would that benefit? If I see 10 patients, my priority should be to triage and assess all of them as if they were all equal, and take care of all of them and delegate care as if they're all equal. I shouldn't give any preferential treatment. There might be some scenarios, there's a kid or something like that. I'm probably going to put a lot more effort into the kid. But otherwise, it doesn't matter if I hate you, if I like you. It doesn't matter, if you bumped into me and didn't say, excuse me, whatever. It doesn't matter what the case is. I should be able to do the same work for every patient the same way. So I'm totally with you on that.
Yeah, I do think some of the emotional stuff, I think there's a lot of groups in society that try to force emotional stuff on people, like being vulnerable, or I don't understand that. I don't see the value in that. I think, and I agree with you on like the medic thing, like you have a job to do, and if you let emotions and like feelings and stuff get in the way, you won't be as effective. Right. You have to like. I think compartmentalizing stuff. It's like when you make a bad shot. Like if you can't dwell on things, you can't dwell on your mistakes. I think the key to success is you're going to make mistakes in life. If you show me someone that's never made a mistake, I'll show you an oddball. Like, that's a part of life.
Yep.
I mean, the people that have made the most mistakes, the most new mistakes, I think have a leg up on people that haven't. Now, if you find someone that makes the same mistake multiple times, then you have a problem. But like trying things and failing and this and that and like, screw ups, just don't screw up. Don't screw up the same way twice. Like that's
Learn from your mistakes.
Yeah. Absolutely. Hey man, the dog shits in that part of the yard. Don't go over there. I got shit on my shoe. Why? Well, I went over that spot in the yard. Okay. You do that every week. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing. What did Bush say? Fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice, and incoherent babble. I don't know if that was a funny one. So
was that in response to the shoe being thrown at him?
No, it was something I don't remember what it was, but like it's so word salady I can't even repeat it. Like it pretty funny. So
but I had a couple things that wanted to bring up as well, and I don't know how much time you have.
Plenty.
Okay, cool. So I know you post your Baker's thoughts periodically.
I forget the best ones, dude. I'm so mad. I get so mad because like I'll be doing something like, oh my God, I got to write that down. I'll get it in a second. And then a second goes by and dude, I don't.
Yeah. So reading one from the other day, I took a screenshot of this. I'm sure you saw the whole eggnog war that's been going on. So I was kind of disappointed in your response to eggnog.
Eggnog, I think eggnog is disgusting.
I love it. I think it's great.
I strongly agree with you. Eggnog is absolutely disgusting.
It's a horrible. Dude, listen. Eggnog it has a branding problem. It is like Obamacare. The reason that Republicans hate Obamacare is because it's called Obamacare. Period. The reasons that the Christian right hates birth control is because it's called birth control. It should be called hormone therapy. You change the name, like. I promise you it would be a different animal. Eggnog, I'm not drinking raw eggs. It's not 1960. Like, I think eggnog sucks. But anyway, what do you got there? What do you got?
So the top of the list on this one of life's true pleasures is the righteous application of violence. Was there a specific moment that you were thinking of when you wrote that?
I think that was a byproduct of seeing some dude, like some guy trying to get social media clout and harassing someone and just.
Oh, the
thorny, no, not the Kelsey thing, not the Jason Kelsey thing, but that's a good example of it, But like the righteous application of violence, like there's just certain people, certain things, and certain situations where the highest and best response is just absolute violence, and I like that.
I can agree with that.
I think it's fantastic.
Okay, I'm gonna set this one out.
I was very restrained. We went to the Michigan versus Michigan State game last weekend, and the Michigan State fans obviously were not very happy. And here I am, 6'3", 6'4", 275, walking around. I got these little 5'8" dudes trying to bump into me on purpose and talking shit. And I'm just like, dude, if this was another time, another place,
it'd be a different outcome.
Yep.
Yeah, I think Mike Tyson said it best. That's the problem with social media is people can say what they want and not get punched in the face.
Yep.
Yeah, I love Baker's thinkings. Like it is a highlight. When I need to do more.
What does your wife think of him?
She thinks. So that's the problem with Melissa. Like the stupid shit that I do and say that's just completely like nuts. Like she laughs hysterically. She doesn't help. Like me.
So she encourages you. She's your cheerleader.
She encourages it. She's an enabler and a cheerleader.
She rolls her eyes at me, so.
She laughs. I can say some really inappropriate shit, and she like doubles over in laughter. And like anytime you get someone laughing hysterically at something you did or said, like it just makes you want to do it more. And so it's her fault, not mine.
Ah.
But it's actually funny. So like my personality is very similar to my mother's. And so we were in Savannah Friday. We took my mother to dinner Friday night, and she's telling us a story. My mother's 80, and I was like, you guys used to have like mental institutions when y'all were growing up. And she goes, oh yeah, we did. And she's like, yeah, there was one. So she grew up in a little town called Sylvania, Georgia, population like 5,000-6,000. And they had a middle institution called Greystone or Grayscale or something like that in Statesboro. And she's like, oh, yeah, we did a high school field trip. And she's like, we were all dancing. She's like going, we're going to the funny house. And like they're on the school bus driving to this mental institution and they're all like dancing and they're so excited. And she said when they left on the bus ride home, every person sat still, looked directly ahead and did not say a word.
That's hilarious.
She goes, we saw people with heads this wide and we saw people with heads this size. And she said one dude had a leather strap, had his head on the board. Like they took a field trip to a crazy farm. And she said it was very traumatizing. And just, if you'd have been there and could have seen it's the funniest thing I've heard in a long ass time. It's hilarious.
It was probably to set them all straight. If you don't graduate high school, this is where you're going to end up.
That's what I said. It's like, don't cross your eyes because if someone hits you in the back of the head, you'll be cross-eyed for the rest of your life. Like absurd stuff. So, all right, what else? You got another one. What else?
Well, really, I'll come back to the Baker's thinkings, but this one's been on the top of my head. How'd you get the nickname Black Baker? Where'd that come from?
Black is my middle name. Not a very exciting answer, is it?
No.
It kind of is. It's kind of exciting. So, funny story. My uncle was also a sprinter, just like I was, just like my brother was. And he won state in 1969. And that's the first year that they integrated schools in the South. And, they used to refer to people by their last names back then.
Yep.
And so my uncle at the state meet, everyone's walking around saying, my uncle's name is Littleton Baker Black. So his last name's Black. My mother's maiden name. Everyone's like, hey, man, you raced the black boy? And he's like, no, man, I didn't race anybody. And they were talking about him. But they didn't know. They all thought like the black boy, the black kid was African-American. They didn't put two and two together and realize that it was my Uncle Littleton and it was the last name. He didn't know either. He's like, no, I hadn't lost any black kid. Just
that's funny.
Funny story.
My uncle lives here. He's on Wilmington or New Hanover County Search and Rescue. He's a captain. His name is Reggie. And this never occurred to me when I was a kid, but he was telling the story about how he'd be set up on blind dates and the girl wouldn't show up because they associate the name Reggie with African-American. That's not who they were looking to date. And so he got stood up several times simply because his name was Reggie.
That's actually really funny.
Yeah.
I like that. I think that's very funny. I'll tell that story. I'll tell it as my own story.
Go for it.
And I'll be like, yeah, I got this friend. I'll use that today somewhere.
Do it.
I'm going to put that in Baker's thinkings. When naming your kid, consider the following.
Yeah. That's hilarious.
That's yeah. So let me throw in a couple, one thing that a project I'm working on that's super important.
Yeah.
So one of the things I'm working on in DC is a project called Smoke Less Vets, smokelessvets.org. And we have a goal of getting a million veterans and active duty guys to quit smoking by 2030. And there's a bunch of studies coming out like how to transition veterans off of cigarette smoke. And, we've learned that like nicotine gum, like literally has the opposite effect. And nicotine lozenges do not work. And we learned that nicotine patches are actually quite beneficial in helping with COVID because it's a vasodilator, but they serve no purpose in getting people to quit smoking. And the only way to quit smoking, we had studies in Switzerland, Sweden, and the UK, was for people to transition from smoking tobacco onto forms of less harmful, just nicotine products like Zen or Velo or things like that. So if you are a veteran or active duty guy or anybody that smokes or has someone that smokes, go check out smokelessvets.org. There's actually some really, really interesting information on how to quit smoking there.
Yeah, we had Matt Kenny on a couple weeks ago. He talked in depth about it. Great
Super
guy.
nice guy.
Yeah.
Very square about it.
We talked about, challenges because that's kind of something that our demographic really likes, the 30 days of no whatever, or 30 days of push-ups, or there's always like a 30-day or a 90-day thing. And
I got one for you.
Go for it.
The best one I've ever done, called the Character Mile. My buddy Brandon Lilly
came up with it a couple years ago, and run a mile every day. Doesn't matter what time, what the weather is. If you you have to run 1 mile a day. And I started it on November the 27th. And I was like, all right, I'll do it, because Melissa and I were leaving to go hunting in Texas during Christmas of that year. So I was like, I'll do it, I think November the 24th, and I'll finish on Christmas Day, and then we leave later that day for Texas. I literally did it for like 67 days straight.
Wow.
Like when we were at Four Canyons Lodge in Texas hunting, like I would come back in from like the evening hunt, and she would get in the golf cart, and I would run a mile down the dirt road to the gate and then run back, and she would just follow me in the golf cart. So like if you're looking for a challenge, I'd get off on things like this. I'd absolutely embrace them. I think they're freaking awesome. And I think the simpler they are, the better, because it's just forcing yourself to do something every day. The character mile, you run a mile every day. And like, I remember I got back, I had to fly somewhere for business. I got home, I walked in the door at like 11:40. I was coming back from Texas. I got in the door at 11:40, walked into the house, put my stuff down, kissed her on the cheek, threw on my running shoes, and like ran a mile at like 11:40 at night around my neighborhood. So then it's just cool. Like that's one that's really, really good. I did another challenge in 2022 where I rode 1 million meters.
Wow.
Which I ended up rowing like 1.2 million meters, and I gave myself like tendonitis in my elbows like a son of a bitch, and that sucked. But that was actually pretty easy because I worked from home, so I had a rower in my house. And like, I just hop down and row like 3,000 meters at a time, throughout the day and whatnot. So that was cool. I really like that. And like, Georgia, I'm a big Georgia football guy, and I graduated from Georgia. And like, I'd row first quarter and third quarter Georgia games. And then like the day after the game, I'd plop down on the rower and watch the key plays of the game. I think I've seen every Sean Ryan podcast that was recorded before 2022, because I just sit there and row and row and row and row. Jeez. But yeah, any like challenges and things like that, dude, I think are awesome. I think a challenge that I'd love to see guys like getting into, just society in general, is like decreasing phone time before bed. I think someone needs to come up with something there, like don't sleep with your phone in your bed or in your bedroom for a month or whatever. I don't know. So I love challenges.
What he was saying was, I had mentioned that when he was on the podcast, as incorporating in to your program to help vets get off of cigarettes.
Some sort of like buddy,
turning it into
accountability,
a
like having a battle buddy, ranger buddy, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody that you basically, and I don't know if the program itself, I've never been a smoker, so it's kind of hard for me to relate to that, but having somebody to be accountable to, whether that's virtually or in person or not, typically, has better effects, at least from what I've seen. I could be completely wrong and just making shit up out of my ass, but
I like that, because you could get like a group together.
Yeah, like a Facebook group or whatever, and everybody, I'm really craving it right now, and then everybody jump on board of don't do it.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Piece of shit quitter.
No, I mean, not like that.
Yeah. The application of violence, like that is the one emotion that will, the only emotion that ever truly solves any problems in the world is rage. And I believe that with everything in my body. Like if you want to accomplish something, like the one emotion that will actually have action on the one's other side of it is rage. Like love, that's great. You're not going to go kill someone out of love. You're going to go kill a bad guy out of rage. So
it's fair.
Okay, I'm going to rage against my lungs and not murder them anymore. Is that what you're getting at?
No, you have to have friends yell at you and scream at you and insult you so that's the thing. Like I believe you put a lot of stuff out there. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Yep. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And it's not because you're bragging or you're a braggart or whatever. Like I think when you put your goals and stuff like that out into the Ethernet and you do it repeatedly, that allows people to hold you accountable.
Yep.
And it allows you to hold yourself accountable.
Yep.
Because
I think when you do something, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and there's a fear of failure, performance anxiety, and being evaluated by your peers. And I think that's very, very important in life, is peer evaluation. I think it's one of the greatest things that we have, actually, especially in like the U.S. military. So like you look at generals, for example, like your entire career in the military as an officer, it's peer review up to 1 star. The moment you pin your first star, after that, it's senatorial approval. It's no longer peer reviewed. So I think peer review is honest, and I think it is, I think peer review in the enlisted ranks is way more honest than it is in the officer corps.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But I do think peer review and being held accountable by, your friends, like in your little wolf pack or whatever term you want to use, like it's your team. It's just important. Like I f***ed up, I failed, I didn't do this, or I had a moment of weakness. And I think honesty, like, is super important too. And like, why didn't you do this? Dude, I was moment of weakness, too tired, didn't want to do it.
Yep.
Up, my bad, won't happen again. And then you don't let it happen again,
I've been taking the 14-year-old with me to the gym, and it's taken a little bit, but he's caught on now to the, hyping the other guy up, but also talking shit and like the right time to do it. There was one time, a couple weeks ago, I was squatting and I was talking shit to myself. He was just standing off to the side. I'm like, come on, you got to do this. And he was like, who are you talking to? And I'm like, myself. You're not doing it, so I'm hyping myself up. And he's like, you want me to like hype you up? And I was like, yeah, you got to talk shit, man. So now he's kind of slowly getting into it.
That makes me happy. So he's 14?
Yeah.
Yeah, so plates make dates, man. Like, that's the one thing. John Warburton said it best. He goes, the one thing in my life.
I'm not ready for that.
No, but it doesn't happen quickly. It takes time. But I think, like, if you look at Mark Zuckerberg and like Jeff Bezos, there's been a massive, massive pivot in the way that those guys think and their decision-making process. I don't know if you guys have paid attention to that at all, but like Zuckerberg started surfing, then he got into BJJ. Those two things elevate testosterone levels. All right. Jeff Bezos, like, I don't know if you saw what just happened with the Washington Post.
Yeah, I did.
Like, you wouldn't let him endorse a candidate and all this stuff. You seen him with his shirt off? Like, he looks fantastic. Dude's been lifting weights, getting jacked and all that stuff. And I think it's important for boys to be boys. I think they need to lift weights. They need to hang out with their friends. They need to wrestle and go outside and do all these things. And I think, like, the best thing that I ever discovered was like exercise, like working out and stuff, like it's just like, if you can see results, it just like, and that's the best thing, especially with that age, they're going through puberty and stuff. They see results quicker.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh man, I got some muscles. I kind of like this shit now, like this girl at school is smiling at me. And like that John Wilburn said, that's the one thing that always helped him his entire life. He's like, girls like muscles. And in today's society, man, like I think in society, it's my opinion, I think that there is a movement from, I don't know where it's coming from, but like to kind of like demasculate men, or like, I don't know, dudes are supposed to be dudes and women are supposed to be women, and women weren't put on this earth to do the things that men can do. They were put on the earth to do the things that men can't do, and vice versa. Like, I think the most noble job on this planet is being a mom. Like, I cannot think of anything else that I find more impressive. Like, you could literally be the CEO of BlackRock. I don't care. So what's that? Versus like, yeah, I'm a mother, I've worked and I raised 2 kids and I was a homemaker. And like being a mom and literally producing like contributing members to society, like I don't think there's anything better on this planet. Like I think that's the coolest thing in the world, So I think that I encourage young boys to be young boys, and I encourage girls to be girls, and husbands to be husbands and wives to be wives, and nuclear families are awesome as shit, So
yeah, he loves it, which I don't think either of us really thought initially that he was gonna like buy into the gym, because he doesn't, generally speaking, he would rather be in front of his computer. If he
that's every other kid.
Yeah. But he doesn't really like spending a lot of time with other people in general. And so going to a gym that's filled with people that he doesn't know And, you know, he's very routine oriented. So if you were to put down on a piece of paper, here's the regiment we're going to do today in the gym, and we didn't go in order, he'd probably have an issue with it initially. So we go in there. I mean, I go in there with a plan. I know what we're going to do. He doesn't typically know in advance unless he sees the routine. Like, okay, we did legs yesterday, so we're probably going to do, you know, chest and arms or triceps or whatever today. And, you know, we make sure that we do things logically. But when you go to a gym it could be packed. It might be empty. You might be able to hit everything you want in the order you want. You might not. You might have to work around people. And
life's little lessons show themselves, and they can be taught anywhere and everywhere, and they normally are.
Yep. But he hasn't had any pushback or any issue with it.
Yeah. I think it's good, man. Like, I think you go into the gym and it shows you what's possible. And like, hopefully there's some like really big, like psycho looking dudes in the gym from time to time. And then there's like old people in the gym. And I think like when it's important for people to see what's possible.
Yep.
You know, like you look at like those dudes that are like Mr. Olympia, zero desire to look like that. But I respect the shit out of those people because they're willing to poison their bodies and run up a bunch of steroids and all manner of stuff to be as big as humanly possible. And I think that's important in society to see that, because that may not be your cup of tea, but those outliers, those extremists, I think it's important because it shows you what's possible.
Yeah.
So if I want to look like that, I got to do all this stuff, but I don't want to look like that, you know? Or like you look at Lance Armstrong or Kelly Slater or Michael Jordan or LeBron or Tiger Woods, and like you look at these power lifters, you know, you look at these extremists, and it's like that may not be your cup of tea, but I think it's important in society to see what's possible, what the human body can achieve. And maybe you don't want to be at the top of the ladder, but maybe you want to go halfway up that ladder. And I think that's super important.
Yeah. And I think he doesn't really pay much attention because he's actually, which for a 14-year-old's amazing, he's more concerned with getting his form correct, understanding the concepts of each piece of equipment that we're using, why, how, you know, and he'll question, you know, on the first set, oh, I didn't really feel it where you said I did. And I'm like, all right, just wait. And then shortly after that, he's like, okay, yeah, I feel it now. And
I did that 2 days ago. I was doing like a back movement on a machine, like a seated row with like a super tight grip. Mm-hmm. And I worked up to heavy, and I was like, I don't like the way that felt. So I went back down 2 plates, and I was like, all right, that's way, way better. Like I slow, controlled, and feel everything. But that's good that he's focusing on form and all that stuff. But anytime you can get kids in any capacity into a gym setting, just do it. I don't care what they do. I think it's important in their development and all that stuff. So that's awesome. But anyway, guys, I got to bounce. I got another call coming up in 9 minutes.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you for your time.
Enjoyed the chat.
Yeah. Well, love to have you on again. Anything else you want to throw out there? Do you have a Baker thought to close the show on?
I'm going to read you a couple that I wrote down. I'm not done with this one, but I haven't published it yet. Okay. All right, here we go. So sushi. Well, no, that's not funny. All right, so here's one. You can either feel the pressure or you can apply the pressure. You can be the hammer, you can be the nail, that kind of concept. Another one, there isn't a female on this planet that looks good wearing high tops. I don't care what anyone thinks. I don't like it. Saltwater taffy is an undervalued treat. I think it's delicious. I had some the other day because it comes in all the different colors and flavors. It's super fun. But ultimately, it all kind of tastes the same, but it is fun. Here we go. This one I'm excited about. There isn't a residence in this country that does not have at least 2 can or bottle openers in it. Think about that for a second.
Yeah, I think we have at least 2. No, we have more. Yeah.
There's no house or apartment in this country that is missing a bottle opener.
So you're saying everybody's alcoholics?
No, I'm saying everybody has them.
Yeah.
How are they even still made? You know, like there's companies, that's all they make.
Yeah.
And like I can go look at my drawer. We bet we have 7 or 8.
Yeah. I never even. Okay. Now I'm going to be thinking about all the things in my house that are just commonplace that are not wear items that you don't replace all the time.
But think about how many you've owned in your life.
Yeah. Not very many.
Bottle openers, can openers. Like They're just tons of them. So anyway, one other thing. When are you guys going to publish this?
Earliest would be Thursday.
Okay. I'm going to be in Texas deer hunting. I leave Wednesday morning at 11:30. Hopefully you know who won by tomorrow night, but I don't know. We should have a good idea. So I hope that everyone listening to this voted and participated in the process. Democrat, Republican, I don't give a shit who you vote for.
Yep.
But don't sit on the sidelines. Be a participant.
Absolutely.
In the next election if you didn't vote in this one.
Yep. All right, Baker. Well, thanks for coming on. We'll hope to have you back on again sometime. And
Absolutely.
And have fun hunting.
Thank you. Y'all have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, you too.
All right.
See you.
Just hit leave session.